everyone. Shana Tova, good year for all of us to be sealed for a very happy, healthy, and sweet new year. This begins a new year, at least on the Jewish calendar, for our program. This is Jewish Talk, coming to you from NASA Community College on 90.3 WHPC. Also streaming on the iHeart and the iTunes app. This program is later archived on Spreaker.com. So hi there, my name is, you know what my name is. I'm not even going to tell you know what, I better do that because there's so many people that have no idea. They turn on the radio. Who on earth is this guy talking here? I'm so early in the morning. You know, not only in the morning, but in the afternoon and in the evening. It all depends when you're listening and watching. And I'd like to say hello radio, hello online, hello Facebook, hello WHPC, hello Linda Zellickson, hello Larry Bolanetsky. Happy and healthy sweet new year to you and to anybody who wants to give a post wishing us a good year or a comment. Please feel free to post it on Facebook, whether it's on mine, under my name, Untitled Pearl or WHPC. Will be more than happy to recognize that. So, good morning to Dr. Eitan Kalshevsky. Good morning from Merrick. Hoi gewalt, Merrick. Merrick is actually a Yiddish word. They think it's a town. It's actually Merak, which means a Hebrew word for soup. You live in Merrick, you're in the soup. Gomar Chatima Tova. So, today I'm going to share ideas that relate to Yom Kippur and how we can make it more meaningful and ideas like that. And we hope that good things will be all for everybody. Now let's just see now. You know, there are times when you're on the air and suddenly you're off the air, and that's part of it. It's part of everything over here. So I want to let you know that, dear friends, when you're on live television, I'm on television now already. When you arrive like this, you sometimes have issues you have to deal with live on the air. And I want to make sure that everybody on our Facebook can see us and hear us. And there are times when, this is a world where things do happen. So let's get right back to it here. Okay, it's not going to be that way. So in the let's first begin. The amazing. It's a story that happened in a cemetery. Hoi gewalt. Now you're going to really up to it. Amazing how everybody is always on the phones all the time. At the restaurants and the movies and the gym, while driving, eating, walking, talking, even in the bathroom. It's crazy. Am I right, Kim? Everywhere you go, you just can't go anywhere. Everyone's walking around with their telephones. Now, if you have a problem getting on my Facebook, why don't you go to the Facebook at WHPC, and you'll be able to get us right there. So it's crazy. Everybody's walking around with their cell phones. The other day, I was at a funeral when the person next to me, a teenager, asked the rabbi for a Wi-Fi code at the cemetery of all places. The rabbi lost it. Have some respect for the dead, hollered the rabbi. Thank you, Rabbi. And the person replied, is that all in uppercase? Oh, he assumed that the rabbi was screaming it because it must be in capital. This is just unbelievable. So today, as we prepare ourselves for Yom Kippur, which is coming Tuesday evening and all day Wednesday, we ask ourselves, what is the value of life? That's really what we're thinking about this time of the year. What, my dearest friends, is the price of life? If you had to put a price tag to your life, what would it be? Did you ever think about it? How much I'm worth? How do I evaluate it? Do I judge it by how much money I would probably earn over a lifetime, as the insurance companies do? How much is my value to the economy? And if I lost my job last year, does my price go down? One more question. If someone said about you, he is worth $3.5 million, how would that make you feel? This is no theoretical question. It was the actual heart-wrenching dilemma brought to the door of a Washington lawyer who recently passed away, Kenneth Feinberg of blessed memory, right after the 9/11 in 2011. Now, in honor of the anniversary of September the 11th attacks, that's this story that I'm about to share with you was captured in film with a haunting title called Worth. Worth. Kenneth Feinberg was appointed the Special Master of the September 11th Victim Compensation Fund. Established after the attacks, it was established by the government, and as an alternative to the families of the victims filing endless lawsuits against the airlines and their companies and the government, and sending airlines into bankruptcy and crippling the American economy. So there became like a whole action, a class action, one location, where everybody turned in their claims. Remembering that during the September the 11th attacks, remember we all know what happened during that time. Over nearly 3,000 people were killed and more than 6,000 others were injured. Among them were 343 members of the NYC Fire Department and 71 law enforcement officers. And more than 90 countries lost citizens in those attacks. Okay, so I want to say good morning to Lynn Feldman, all the way from Huntington. Wow. And we also want to say hello to Jean Brandenstein. Thank you so much. So we're discussing Mr. Feinberg's job. Mr. Feinberg had to figure out how much should the government pay out to the families for each of lives lost. But how do you decide that? Is the 62-year-old hedge fund manager worth more than a janitor in the Twin Towers? Is the life of a fireman priced differently than a real estate tycoon? Initially, his calculations were purely cold and economic. He estimated how much the victim would have earned over a lifetime, but for this tragedy, and he gives the family that amount of money. Then you add some more money for emotional distress, and that's it. And Mr. Feinberg insisted that you can't bend the rules to accommodate the nuances in every case. But then, Ken and his staff discover a heart-wrenching pushback when family members opened up about their loved ones who perished on that day. As one family member yells, "My daughter is worth only $2 million, while the CEO down the hall is worth $5 million. Why?" One woman came to see Ken, both in the real story and in the film, if you watched it, and she says she needs $2.5 million, and she will be getting it for her husband, a firefighter killed on 9/11, and she needs it in 30 days. "I can't," Ken said to her. "This is the taxpayers' money. It's coming out of the United States Treasury. Every case needs to go through a due process. I can't possibly bend the law to suit your desire," because she wanted it, in 30 days. And she said like this, "I have terminal illness. I have 8 weeks to live. I have 2 children, aged 6 and 4. The plan was that my husband, a firefighter, would raise the kids after my demise. Now he's dead, and in 8 weeks, their mum will be gone. I need to set up a trust fund for these children. I need to get them legal guardians. I can't wait a few months to get the money. I ask you, my friends, what would you do?" Of course, right? Do you not bend the rules? So Kenneth Feinberg, in desperation, turns to Jewish sages and rabbis to find out if Judaism has a formula to answer these questions. Kim seems to be excited about this, and she agrees. Secular law has none. How do you define the price of life? So indeed, in Jewish sources, it opened his eyes to a different perspective, and it turned his world upside down. The Talmud states that each person, every human being, is obligated to say, "For me, the world was created. Our planet and the entire cosmos was created for me. My life has some transcendent, absolute, and infinite significance. There is something that my presence and my existence contribute to the universe that no one else, before me or after me, could contribute." The Talmud further says that the first human being was created alone to teach us that one person is the entire world. You kill one person, you killed the world. You saved one person, and you've saved the world. So, how much is the price of the universe? If God wants to sell it, how much would you pay? A CEO of a company decided to take some time off from his crazy work to rest a bit at home. When he arrived, upon his arrival with his daughter, who hadn't seen him for so long, latches onto her dad and won't let go. Well, the first few minutes are great. Yet after this, he loses his patience. So he sifts through the newspaper and finds a satellite picture of the Earth. He tears it into 50 pieces and tells his daughter that she should assemble the picture and return it back when she's done. He was naturally thinking that he had just bought himself at least an hour. He's very excited until 4 minutes later, she returns with the puzzle done. He asks her, "How did you do it so fast?" To which she responds, "Dad, you see, on the other side, there was a face of a woman. And I realized that when I pieced together her face, the whole globe came into place." So you see, dear friends, this, for us, the single individual is the whole world. Keep sending your wonderful comments on Facebook, whichever way you'd like, and we'll be more than happy to recognize you. And I want to say hello to everybody who is watching us on Facebook and listening, of course. Everybody out there in the world of WHPC, it's a great honor that you come each week and you join us. So, again, what is the price of your child's life? What is the price of your mother's life? How do we estimate the price of a loving gaze of a child into a mother's eyes? How much is that worth? What is the value of a father hugging his son or daughter? And I want to say hello to Label, my friend Larry Swenson. Man, he came to the Tashlich we had at the Mineola Park on Rosh Hashanah, and we really had a great time, a meaningful gathering, explaining why we stood there together. So thank you, Larry, for joining us today. And with that, I want to say a big shout out to everybody at the Four Seasons, to Brian and to Matthew and to everybody out there. Good morning to you, and wishing you all a very happy, healthy, and sweet New Year. So you see, much of Judaism is a protest against this idea that people are nothing, but everyone makes a difference. Everyone counts. Right? What do we say in the Kaddish? Yiskadal v'yiskadash Shemei Rabbah. These are the words echoed for generations in response to the death of a loved one. What is the meaning of this famous Kaddish words? May his great name be exalted and sanctified. What's the connection? Who's talking about the divine name? Someone just died. I will never forget a moving answer I heard from the Lubavitcher Rebbe while he was saying Kaddish for his wife in 1988. And the Rebbe said, when a human being dies, a piece of God dies, so to speak, together with him or her. Every human being, every neshama is a manifestation of divinity, of God himself in this world. So when a person passes away, the light of God embodies in this person has now been diminished. Therefore, we say, his name be exalted. And we quickly now recognize that everyone who passed away was bringing godliness to this world. We get it wrong when we say that 6 million Jews were murdered in the Holocaust, as though the shock is merely the large number of victims. No, even one was killed. One, really, in a sense, what I'm saying is one was killed. The one and only Jew was killed. He or she was killed 6 million times. I also want to continue this idea again. Before Yom Kippur, we start to look at our lives seriously and more, and say to ourselves, what is life worth? There's a story that has a remarkable impact on me. Prisoners marked for the gas chambers in Auschwitz were placed in Block 25. The Germans, known for their efficiency, did not want to waste Cyclone B on these prisoners, so they would wait until a large transport would arrive, and they would send these prisoners to the gas chambers with the new arrivals. While they waited for the next transport, these doomed prisoners were left to lie naked in the barracks without any food. There was a particular woman sent to Block 25. By the time the transport arrived, she was so weak that the Jewish prisoner who was ordered to fetch her had to lift her and place her on a truck because she could not walk. As he held this poor naked woman in his arms, He would later recall, and he began to cry. Much to his surprise, she responded by thanking him. "Why are you thanking me?" he asked. And she said, "Because now I can die a bit happier, knowing that I meant enough to someone in this world to cause him to shed tears for me." The Germans wished to strip the last ounce of human dignity from our brothers and sisters. When this woman felt that someone would cry for her, she could hold on to that last iota of infinite value that the human soul has, just because you are God's one and only beloved child. And there's only one of each. There's no one else like you. There will never be anyone else like you. So back now to how this all impacted this Kenneth Feinberg, who, as you may know, recently passed away. After learning all of this, together with his team, he went into a spiritual transformation. Because he had now learnt the Jewish view on life and met face to face with hundreds of victims, loved ones, he emerged like another person. He and his staff came to realize what was important to the families of the 91 victims was far more than the money. It was the acknowledgement that money will never compensate for a life, because a life indeed has no price. What they longed for more than all else was that the lawyers and the bureaucrats should honor the pain, the silence, the awe, the loss, the infinite depth of losing a life that was irreplaceable. And when Feinberg and his team finally got it, everything changed. 7,300 people signed up for the fund, and he distributed them to them $7.1 billion. Just by the way, 94 people who loved lost ones refused to cooperate, and they filed their own lawsuits, and ultimately resulting for them, who didn't go with the whole group, it took them years to get some settlement. But the people were ready to take the money only when they knew that Ken was not paying off the price of a life. He was merely offering a symbolic gesture to help keep a family financially stable. Of course, they were happy to get some money, a few $1 million, but that was just money, economics. What meant really most to them was the affirmation that my loved one has no price. Now this is Kenny Feinberg, discussed this. He shared this story at a national Jewish retreat of the JLI, which is a well-known Chabad annual gathering, and he was one of the guest speakers, and he shared this story. A woman shared with me how her husband, a firefighter, ran to the lobby of the World Trade Center and brought 20 people out to safety. Then he ran in again and brought another 20 people to safety. As he was running out, someone jumped from the higher floor and fell directly on him like a missile, killing him on the spot. Had he moved one step away in either direction, he would have been alive. Mr. Feinberg, the bereaved wife, said, "Keep your money and bring him back." This woman needed to hear from him that no amount of money, not even $300 billion, would compensate for such a loss. And so, as we come now to the holiday of Yom Kippur, let's think about ourselves. Is this not true with each of us? Sure, everybody wants to be financially stable and crave success and pursue comfort. And may all of us have an abundance of all of these things over the next year. But what I need to know first and foremost is that my life really matters. That my value is innate, intrinsic, essential, absolute, non-negotiable. I heard this following story from Rabbi of the Surfside, Chabad and Bal Harbor area, Rabbi Shalom Ber Lipska. A father came to see me, this is his story, and he shared that he was married with a teenage son in the house. Yet he grew bored of his wife, fell in love with another woman, and ultimately divorced his first wife. After the divorce, the boy remained with his father in the home and treated the new woman who would come to visit very disrespectfully. blaming her for the destruction of the family, for the entire unit. When the father proposed to her, she made a condition. She would not marry him unless his teenage son would move out of their home in Bal Harbour, Florida. She does not want to see the face of this boy again. The father, who was extremely wealthy, called in his child. He handed him an envelope with $20,000 in cash, gave him the keys to the new Ferrari, gave him a few credit cards to use, to be paid for each month by the father, and finally he gave him keys to a beautiful flat. I guess that's an English word, but an apartment on the ocean. The father then silently added one stipulation. Son, all of this is yours. Take it and enjoy. But you can't step foot into this house anymore. If you need me, give me a call and I will come to visit you. The boy took the cash, the credit cards, the keys, and threw them back at the father and said, I don't want your money. I don't want your car. I don't want your houses. I don't want your richness. All I want is a father. Now, he was coming to Rabbi Lipska to ask him what to do. What the boy was saying was like this. Daddy, there are enough people who will put a price on my life, but you are my father. A father does not put a price on his child's life. There is a remarkable teaching of the sages that when there is injustice in the world, the angels protest. The fiery angels on high cry out in bitterness, is this Torah? Is this its reward? The enemy is desecrating your name and awesome greatness, blaspheming, cursing the words. So answers a voice from heaven, if I hear another sound, I will turn the world to water. I will make the earth chaos and emptiness. It is a decree before me, so accept it. This is an interesting teaching. But why? Why would God destroy the world just because someone asked a fair question? The angels are asking, like, why does there have to be so much garbage going on in the world? You know, why is it? And God says, take it easy, keep quiet, otherwise why? What's the problem? So the Vilna Gaon explained it with the metaphor of a tailor. He gives this answer. A great king who obtained the finest, elegant, and expensive fabric the world had ever seen, and he gives it to a Jewish tailor, asking him to weave it into a royal cloak, the likes of which have not been seen. The tailor asked for 6 months to complete the job. 6 months later, the garment was finished and presented to the king. It was even more exquisite than the monarch had imagined. But that evening, there was a knock on the king's door. Entered a particular religious person who despised the Jewish tailor. Your Majesty, let us measure the garment and ensure that all of the material was used. They measured the material, and lo and behold, it was smaller than the original material given to the tailor. Said this religious person. The tailor has a brazen chutzpah of stealing some of the most expensive material of the king. The king had him arrested, tried, and sentenced to death for treason. May I have one last wish, Your Majesty? Yes, answered the king. I want you to give me the garment I just made and a pair of scissors. The garment was given to the tailor. Slowly, he took the scissors and placed them on the garment. He began to cut and undo the entire garment, thread by thread. The king was aghast. What are you doing? I have not stolen any of the material, said the tailor, but for me to prove my innocence, I need to undo the entire garment. Right now, you cannot observe in the cloak every inch of material you have given me. But if I undo the entire garment and revert it back to the way it was originally, I will be able to show you how every centimeter of the material can be accounted for. This is how the Vilna Gaon gives this mashal, this to explain this. You see, God wasn't telling the angels not to ask the questions. He was not threatening them with destruction just because they protested the suffering in the world. Rather, he was telling them that when he created the world, He did it with a plan that transcends the finite mind of any human being. We don't expect a child to grasp the mind of an adult. How can we expect the mind of a mortal man to wrap itself around infinity? If a human being can't wrap his brain around quantum mechanics, can he really expect to grasp the author of the quantum physics? If we can't even figure out the properties of light, can we really know the mind of the creator of light? Like a stunning garment, every thread, every event, every moment, every experience, every story has its place and purpose in the grand cosmic purpose. Every particle and wave of the universe is an essential part of the divine plan, an indispensable note in this cosmic symphony. Every life and every breath and all that transpires in between is part of a marvelous tapestry, somehow playing its role in the ultimate purpose of history. But, God tells the angels in our little medrash, in order for you to understand any of this, it would be necessary to undo everything, to undo the entire creation, to go back to the chaos and nothingness in the genesis of it all. We would need to return to the prebiotic soup, to the iron, to the, that's a Hebrew word, nothingness that preceded reality as we know it. We need to return to the state of no-thingness, to the mind of infinity, which transcends and precedes time, space, matter, logic, and any description or definition. I'd like to interrupt myself and thank everybody who's listening and let you know that this is WHPC 90.3. We come to you from Nassau Community College every Sunday from 8 to 9, and we have different topics and different interviews from time to time, and today we're speaking about the value of life as we prepare ourselves for the day of Yom Kippur. Welcome to Jean Marie. Good morning to you, and to Keith Drucker. Shana Tova, Rabbi, thank you so much. Just to let you know, Keith, that Sheldon was in synagogue, and he sends your regards. So, again, if we want to understand the secret of how this world runs, says God to his angels, come back with me to the beginning of everything. Like that stunning garment, every thread, every event, every moment, every experience, every story has its place and purpose in the grand cosmic purpose. Every particle and wave of the universe is an essential part of the divine plan, an indispensable note in this cosmic symphony. Every life, every death, and all that transpires in between is part of a marvelous tapestry, somehow playing its role in the ultimate purpose of history. There's something that came over to me during this high holiday period at our synagogue. Our synagogue in Mineola welcomes so many wonderful people from so many communities and from so many backgrounds and affiliations. And something hit me during the high holidays when I had the honor to be able to address and to meet such wonderful people. I have this inner feeling, in line with what I'm discussing, that everything happens by divine providence. For a person to make a commitment and to make the effort to come to a shul in Mineola, it's not exactly, the Five Towns or Great Neck, means they have a special soul. There's something. When I was a child, a student in yeshiva, I was told that the Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad Rebbe, wrote the Tanya for everybody. He went into the Gan Eden, into the Garden of Eden, and he picked out which souls would study this book. So anybody who picks up the book of the Tanya is one of those souls. It was chosen by this great Rabbi, the Alter Rebbe. I had just, over Yom Tov, it came over to me the same kind of feeling. Over the many years in the synagogue that went from practically closing to Baruch Hashem, where we are today, and Halavai Vaita, and even in an increasing way, that everyone who makes the effort to support, to come, to participate, to make sure that our shul remains alive and well by physically being there, by financially being there, means they were souls chosen by God to help, to be part of this, not just continuity, but of this part of eternity that continues to grow in ever-increasing way in the Mineola area. And I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to each and every one of you. And you know who you are, and I appreciate that, and we appreciate it so much. Again, the idea is there's a cosmic plan. Every one of us plays an important role, like this thread in this beautiful garment. So God tells the angels, in order for you to understand this, he would have to undo everything. And that's what is important to know, that every soul who ever lived, every life, every experience of each person in history is part of this intricate garment. Every soul, like that, every thread is accounted for. There's no such thing as an excess person. No soul or no person is ever forgotten. No neshama fades into oblivion. We do not understand the mysteries of every life and death. We have no idea and understanding why certain people die and when, but we know that God in his infinite wisdom takes care of every soul, like a mother takes care of her beloved child, as we sing in the high holidays, Haben Yakir Li Ephraim. This really is the message of Yizkor, and I invite everyone, even if you're not coming to a synagogue for the entire services, which, by the way, you miss out so much, the explanations, the camaraderie, the community feeling, but even if you're just coming to shul just for the Yizkor, that's really what Yizkor is all about, reminding us that God never ever forgets any soul. Yizkor Elokim Nishmas. God never ever forgets any soul. Everyone is priceless. Everyone is cherished. And we may be actually saying something deeper. Yizkor, remind us, God, allow us to remember the souls of our loved ones, not just their economic value and their price and what they left us, not their contributions to the market, but Yizkor Elokim Nishmas, which means, God, help us remember their soul. Help us remember their infinite, their divine soul, which is eternal and which is never forgotten or lost. Allow us to always see the soul in our loved ones and, of course, in everyone around us, because that is priceless. This is the essence of Yom Kippur. Above all, it is the day where God reaches out to each and every one of us and says, you are the world. You mean everything to me. You are mine. Please do not put a price on your life, on your mitzvahs, on your light, on your kindness, on your love, and on your light. You are priceless, infinite. I want you. I love you. I'm crazy about you. I want to connect to you. Every mitzvah you do means the world to me because it connects you to me. That's what Yom Kippur is all about. Jack Eastman was a very successful lawyer, sharply dressed, impressive looking. After a long day's work, he hopped onto the train from Port Authority to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and got himself settled in the last available seat. As the doors were about to close, in walks Jason Gross. His hair was messy, clothing wrinkled, and with no seats available, he reached for the plastic hook right on top of Jack's head. Doors close, and the train speeds off. Some time went back, and a seat opened up near Jack. He lifted up his eyes from his laptop. Would you like to sit down? Nah, I'll just stand. Jason didn't even make eye contact. Jack had 2 young sons, and seeing how troubled this young man looked, he could not help but think of himself. If my kids were in this situation, I wish someone would reach out to them. So half an hour later, he tried again and again, and Jason refused. He obviously wanted to be left alone, but at the 3rd try, Jason finally gave in and sat down. Do you want to talk? Something is bugging you. If I want to talk, I will let you know. A few minutes later, Jason finally made eye contact and started talking. It all started when I was 15. I was a geek in my own world and into technology. My parents would bug me to get friends, and I would always tell them to mind their own business. One advantage of being a techie was that I invented something, sold it, and made a mint. I was all of 17 years old. Suddenly, with all the money, I had lots of friends. My parents would constantly try to warn me about people who were only there only for my money. We would argue about that a lot, and finally one day I hung up the phone on them and asked them never to call back again. Money helped me to get married to a beautiful girl. We got married with both of our parents not being invited. 9 months later, she had a baby. Life was perfect. We were living in the beautiful high-rise in Manhattan, Manhattan over there. Beautiful wife, adorable child, and plenty of geld, plenty of money. One day, I got involved with a shady character who offered me a chance of a lifetime, where after investing with him, I could retire with millions. I invested all I had, but the call never came. I lost everything. Just like that, I was poor again. My wife left me and took the child. Suddenly, I had no friends to turn to. I was evicted from my apartment. My entire life was crumbled. I was lonely. I was penniless. I would go to restaurants begging for food. Doors were slammed in my face. Starved and ashamed, I lay down on a park bench, closed my eyes, and went to sleep, thinking I will die there. A man tapped me on the shoulder and woke me. He cared. I don't know who he was. He sat next to me, asked me my story. He invited me to his home, allowed me to shower and change clothing. He then asked me to contact my parents. I couldn't. How could I use them like that? I treated them like my worst enemies. No respect, and refused to include them in any part of my life. Now that I needed them, I should use them. He pushed me to at least write a letter. Tears blurred my vision as I poured my heart onto the paper. I recounted everything that happened since we last spoke. I tried to imagine them reading the letter. I know they loved me, but didn't know how they would react. I knew it was cowardly not to call, but I had no choice. In the letter, I asked for a favor. I'll be on the train on September the 16th at 11:30 p.m. coming from the city. About 50 yards before the station, there's a large oak tree. If they find it in their heart to forgive me, they should place a white flag on the tree. If there's nothing there, I will stay on the train, and that's it. Fertig. By the time Jason finished the story, Jack was holding a crying boy in his arms. Jason was sobbing. The train was nearing the station, and Jason did not have the courage to look up and see if there was a flag on the tree. As the train slowed, only 100 yards left, Jason started shaking and put his head between his knees. Jack stared out of the window. "What do you see? Please, 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 tell me, tell me." Jack smiled. The entire tree was covered in white flags. The doors opened, and Jack and Jason hugged. Standing on the station with tears in their eyes was Jason's parents. At first, he hesitated, but then he ran into their open arms. "Welcome home, son. Welcome home." So, on Yom Kippur, just a few days from now, we all come home. And guess what? The flags are all over the place. And our Father in heaven reminds us that love is never ever tarnished, nor compromised, or even diluted. Haben Yakeli, I want you. So, what is Yom Kippur? What is this day? God says, Ich will dir allein. I just want you. I love you. I cherish you. Please stay connected to me. Share your life with me. This year, introduce a new mitzvah into your life, one that will connect you for eternity with God and with your priceless divine soul. God says to us on this day, I want you. I want your Shabbos. I want your mezuzah. I want your tefillin. I want your prayer. I want your tzedakah. I want your Shabbos candles. Why? I want your Torah study. Why? Because I want you. You are my precious child. A lot to think about, dear friends, and certainly very, very appropriate for us to be thinking about this as we prepare ourselves for Yom Kippur. You know, what is the greatest contribution of science to society? Ever thought about this? The fantastic increase of power in the world. Did science create that power? No. Science discovered it in the universe and unleashed it. Electricity and nuclear and solar power are not of humanity's making. But guess what? Humans have learned how to tap into nature and release them. They were there all along. A grizzly bear is much stronger than Albert Einstein. Einstein's strength was in another realm. He understood how to tap into nature so that the universal power, not his own, was now set free. In doing so, he changed the world. In the spiritual world, that is what teshuvah, repentance, means. Teshuvah is tapping inwardly so that power is released. There is more potential in the soul than in anything else in the world, by far. It sets human beings apart from animals, bestowing upon us an endless capacity to imagine something greater than what is and to bring it into being. We have the power of reinvention. What is apparent on the surface of a person is a fraction of what lies within. None of us is as good as we can be. The mind and the heart of every one of us is capable of thoughts so lofty and feelings so refined that we would be amazed if we only could catch a glimpse of the image of God that exists within us. Therefore, we are assured that we can be greater than we think. We can unleash incredible powers from our souls if we just tap into it. Yom Kippur is the perfect time to consider what might yet be, what could be if we take the right steps. It is a precious gift that provides us with the opportunity to recalibrate our existences so that we can change ourselves and contribute in new ways to the lives of our families, our communities, and the world. Like the great power unleashed by science, we have inside of us a power that, when harnessed, can illuminate and revitalize the world. You know, a philosopher once described dirt as a matter in the wrong place. Yes, you heard me right. A philosopher once described what is dirt. It's matter in the wrong place. I've always liked that idea. What is lovelier than a waterfall tumbling over rocks, shimmering in the sun, its soothing sound echoing through the forest? Or what is more delightful than the endless golden sand stretching out along the shoreline, its comforting warmth washing over you? But water flooding your house is not lovely. And sand dumped on your bed sends you running for the vacuum. Water and sand in the wrong places wreaks havoc. Humility is like that. In its proper setting, it is a thing of beauty, virtuous and attractive. In the wrong place or at the wrong time, it is unattractive, unhealthy, and destructive. It is a matter of place and time. Humility in the right place is saying, hey, no big deal when someone steps on your ego. You don't fly into a rage, and you don't take revenge. Our prayer speaks of that of the right placed humility when it says, return to Hashem with humble spirit. Humility in the wrong place is when someone calls you for help and you say, who am I? I'm not special at all. I can't help. I've given enough already. I've met my requirements for the IRS for giving tzedakah. I can't give any more. Don't misplace your humility, says the Baal Shem Tov. The world depends on you. With your every good mitzvah and kind deed, the world changes. Don't devalue yourself or your contributions. If humility holds you back, my friends, it is misplaced. Back in the 1930s, Viktor Frankl was a young man teaching psychology at an adult school in Vienna. Outside of work, he kept a healthy social calendar, seeing friends and dating eligible women. Frankl didn't think his looks were his best trait. So whenever he wanted to impress a woman, he used a little trick. In the middle of the conversation, he would praise a certain Frankl, whose class he was attending at the adult school. He would enthusiastically suggest that she accompany him to hear Frankl speak. And so they would sit down in the big hall where this Frankl taught his popular classes. Frankl would sit at the end of the first row. Can you imagine the impression it would make on the girl, he recalled, when her date suddenly left his seat and was greeted now with the audience applauding, stepping up to the lector. Frankl understood that humility is not always a virtue. A person must be careful not to let the wise boast of their wisdom. Don't let heroes boast of their exploits. If you wish to boast of this alone, that you truly know me and understand these are the words Hashem has created us. Boasting in the wrong place is like sand in your bed. It's unattractive and destructive. Boasting in the right place and in understanding that you have a unique role to play in the mitzvahs you do and making the lives of people around you better, that's a thing of beauty. You are needed. Please don't shrink from making that invaluable contribution to the world. This is clearly what I am thinking about as I prepare myself and our community as we prepare ourselves for the great holiday of Yom Kippur. There's so much more, Perhaps I'll share this as well. Recently I saw a Jewish tombstone. In large letters it said, Sammy Goldberg. The inscription after that read like this: the following people still owe me an apology. Then there were 6 columns of names. Sammy knew how to hold a grudge. The man defied mortality. Isn't that fantastic? He was nursing grudges after death. Imagine, on his epitaph, on his monument, he lists a ganze list of people who owe him an apology. And on his tombstone, his offenders live on. He is still waiting and always will. In our prayers, we say, Maher yikadmuni rachamecha. Let your loving forgiveness come quickly to us. We ask God to forgive us quickly. And the same way we ask God to act towards us, so He asks us to act towards another. Why would anyone continue to nurse grudges and grievances? Why would anyone deliberately choose to prolong unpleasantness? I think part of the answer is there is something satisfying about being the injured party. It makes us feel righteous, in some way morally superior. We can look down with scorn on the person who hurt us. We feel noble. We get comfortable on the moral high ground. But the truth is that carrying resentment is destructive. Nursing a grudge only perpetuates the offender's power over you. He continues to live in your head, free rent in your head and your heart, reinforcing your frustration, polluting your imagination with thoughts of getting even. Don't let him get away with that. He may or may not deserve forgiveness, but you deserve better than to waste your energy by being angry with him. Letting go is the best revenge. It is the ultimate form of liberation. A rabbi in a town in Eastern Europe, wished to visit his relatives in one of the larger villages some distance from his town. He hired a driver with a wagon and a donkey to take him. When he arrived, the rabbi was about to climb into the seat next to the driver when the man said to him, "I must tell you in advance that my donkey does not have much strength, so you will have to proceed at a slower pace than usual." The rabbi responded that he understood the nature of the problem, and that he was not in such a great hurry to reach his destination. No, fine. The road to the destination was through a very hilly country. When they arrived at the first sizable hill, the driver asked the rabbi to descend from the wagon and help push the donkey up the hill because he did not have enough strength to pull them and the wagon on such an incline. The rabbi, already regretting his decision to have hired this team, nonetheless, he had no choice. He complied. And with great exertion, they were able to push the donkey and the wagon to the top of the hill. As the rabbi prepared to remount the wagon and sit down once again, the driver informed him they would have to stay beside the wagon on the downhill side as well, because the momentum of the descent was too strong for the animal. So once again, the rabbi dismounted, and together they made their way down the hill to the valley below. I guess it was called Valley Stream at that time. This same process was repeated a dozen times during the long journey. In fact, the rabbi spent just as much time out of the wagon that he was on the inside. When they finally arrived at their destination, the rabbi, by now exhausted, his clothing verschmuttet and verschmettet and disheveled and dirty, his mood was darkened, paid the driver the amount they had agreed upon. The driver thanked him and was about to leave when the rabbi stopped him and asked, "I understand that I had to make this journey because I had to come to my village, to this town, to visit my relatives. I also understand that you had to come along to earn wages for yourself and your family. But what I don't understand is this: why in the world did we have to bring along the donkey? Carrying a grudge through life is like schlepping that donkey. It's a heavy load to bear for one day, let alone a long period of time. Today is the time to heal the wounds of the past. When you do, you will have more positive energy available to build the future. Be kind to yourself and forgive. And do me a favor, dear friends, drop the donkey. Enough already." This is your host, Rabbi Perl, thanking you so much. Thank you so much. Let's conclude with a bracha, a blessing. May the Almighty bless each and every one of us, all of our listeners, all of your family, your extended family, your work, your place of work, all your good offices. May this year be filled with good health, with prosperity, both physically and spiritually and physically, and both of them together. And may we all be blessed with a year with complete accomplishments, everything that we looked forward to do to accomplish both in the material sense and the spiritual sense be fulfilled in the highest measure. Wishing everybody a chasima and gemar chasima tova.